Want to know what it's like living in a fifth wheel trailer full time? Maybe you're thinking about downsizing or tiny living or buying yourself a fifth wheel trailer or an RV to remodel and to live in. Well, before you do that, I'm going to give you the pros and cons of full-time RV living. Now, I live in a fifth wheel trailer, full-time stationary with my husband. We have lived here now for 3 years in the same place. I do live in California, so it's quite expensive here, and we just decided that this was the best option for us, and you will see why when I get into the pros. But actually, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the cons to get the bad stuff out of the way. Now, I do have to say that my con list is a lot longer than my pros looking at it right now, but I do have to say that the pros obviously outweigh the cons for us, otherwise we wouldn't be living here still. So before jumping straight into it, my name is Denise and I make videos on minimalism, healthy living, tiny living, vegan recipes, stuff like that. So if any of those things sound interesting to you, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below and subscribing to the channel. Okay, let's get into the cons. So the first con on my list is obviously space. So this fifth wheel trailer is about 240 square feet, so pretty tiny, and it took us some time to get used to it. We are used to it now, but it's still like a struggle, like getting ready in the mornings. We have to be around each other's space all the time. So like if I'm working on the computer or my husband is, or right now he's doing online school, the other one has to be like really quiet and mindful that the other person's like trying to work or study. So that's been really hard, or not really hard, but just something to get used to. Obviously, if you're thinking about downsizing, this is something that's probably on your mind. So it does take a while to get used to. If you're gonna be living with other people, maybe your spouse or your partner or kids, pets, just keep in mind that you are going to be in each other's space all the time. So that's something to get used to. And a lot of the other cons on this list are related to the space issue. So obviously something else related to the space issue is storage. So we have a lot less storage in this trailer. So we can't like get a bunch of groceries every week. We have to be mindful about what's gonna fit in our fridge, and we have like a little pantry. It's just 2 of us, so actually it's not that bad, and I'm able to shop for 1 whole week, which is what I would usually do. I just got used to just buying less, which is good because a lot less of our food goes to waste, and I'm spending less money on groceries. So another thing obviously is clothing, so I had to downsize my closet a lot. I had to minimize, which is why I adopted a minimalist lifestyle. Believe it or not, my husband has a lot more clothing than I do at this point, and honestly I love it. Yes, it could be a con for you. For me, not so much anymore. I mean, it is kind of a struggle every now and then, but I just have learned to just declutter things every so often so it doesn't get to that point where it just feels like stuff is coming out of the closet and it gets hard to like close in the drawers. I also don't like to have like a lot of knickknacks, like random stuff around, because it just the clutter, you can see it like right away. It's not like a house where you can just shut the door of a bedroom and it's out of your sight and out of your mind. It's kind of just there everywhere. So like dishes, obviously they pile up super fast. We don't have a dishwasher, so I'm doing dishes like 3 times a day, like after breakfast, lunch, and dinner, pretty much. Otherwise, it just piles up. And going into the third con, is kind of related to that, is smells. So because you are going to be in such a small space, you are going to smell everything. Like the tiniest thing could just fill up the whole trailer with the smell. So like if you have garbage that you leave in overnight and it has food that you threw out or anything, it will just stink up the whole place. Another thing is the tanks. If you don't empty them and clean them regularly, they will start to smell, especially during the summertime, I've noticed. Yeah, so you're just gonna be able to notice all these different odors. You are going to have to keep up with cleaning everything and maintaining everything, taking out the trash, just that stuff. But you get used to it and you kind of get into a little routine. Just be mindful that things might get a little stinky in your fifth wheel, and you will just have to learn to take care of that. So the fourth con is cleaning. Now I know a lot of you might think that because it's such a smaller space that cleaning is going to be so much easier, which In some ways it is, but in other ways it's not, because you have to clean a lot more often because it is such a small space. Like any little mess, you will notice it and it's there in your face, so you will want to keep things organized and neat and clean. Also, having to do with the smells, you are going to want to clean more often. I have found it gets dustier more often, and just, you know, I find myself cleaning a lot more than when I lived in a house. So just keep that in mind. If clutter and smells bother you, you are going to be cleaning a lot more often. So another con is noise. And the walls in your fifth wheel are very thin. So like when it is raining outside, when you have thunderstorms, when it's windy, we also get like little branches and leaves falling from the trees because we are surrounded by trees falling on the roof of our trailer. We get birds like bouncing on the top of our trailer, and it gets really noisy, so that can wake you up in the morning. It can keep you up at night. If it's like a thunderstorm or raining pretty hard outside, it can get a little scary because it is loud. Also, if it's really windy, your fifth wheel might like move a little, so that's something to get used to. And also, we're pretty lucky that we don't have neighbors on one side of our trailer. We do live in an RV park, and we pretty much have the best spot in the RV park. We got pretty lucky. We have more space between our next door neighbor and then on the other side, on this side, we don't have any neighbors at all. So we get to look out into like the trees and the hills, and that's really nice. But most likely you are going to have neighbors on both sides if you live in an RV park, unless you decide to live on someone's land or your own land, if that's an option for you. But I've noticed that the other spots in our RV park, they are really close together, and I just could not imagine being that close to someone. I mean, you can probably just hear all their conversations if they're talking pretty loud. If you like to play music, just keep in mind that your neighbors might hear it, talking on the phone. If you get into an argument, you know, all these things, just keep in mind that the walls are very thin. And another con, and this is probably mostly if your unit is a little older, like ours is 96, I believe, so it is a little older. You will want to make sure that you seal your roof. Otherwise, you are going to have roof leaks, which will then lead to mold and rotting. So just make sure that you seal the top of your roof and prepare it for winter, for when it rains, so that you don't get any leaks. I know it can be a little bit of a hassle, but honestly, it's not that bad. They sell like this seal that you just put over your roof and you can just roll it on like a paint. My husband did it. I mean, he's a pretty handy guy, so I guess it depends on the person. You can also pay someone to do it, but definitely make sure you take care of that because you will regret it later. Okay, and my last con, and this may or may not apply to you. I live in California, so it's pretty much hot for like a long time. So it's hot from like May to, I mean, it's October, it's November, and it's gonna be 80 degrees today. So it gets pretty hot here, and the summers in a trailer are just the worst. We do have an AC unit, thankfully, and it does work, but it's really loud. And sometimes, like here in California, we have had all the like power outages. So it's been awful here in the summer. Like our power goes out and we just don't have AC and we're just in here dying. So because it is smaller too, like the heat just gets trapped. Kind of like when you're in a car, you know, and it gets really hot in there. It's similar like in an RV or fifth wheel, it gets really hot. So you might want to invest in some blackout curtains to keep out the sun, to keep it from getting too hot, a fan, you know, anything to keep you cool. Maybe you won't even want to be in your unit when it gets that hot. Maybe you will go to a family member's house or a friend's house or the mall, somewhere where there's AC. But yeah, it's just been awful, and I think that's like one of the things I hate the most about fifth wheel living full time is the summers. I don't mind the winters because it's California, so it doesn't even get that cold. I actually enjoy them. So yeah, I guess it just depends where you live, and you may or may not have this problem. Okay, so those are all the cons. Now going into the pros. So obviously the first pro for us and the biggest pro for us is cost of living. So here in California, we would be paying, like at least where we live, which is pretty much the South Bay area, so we are considered Silicon Valley. So an apartment here, last time I checked, I haven't checked recently actually, but last time I checked, for like a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment, it would be like $2,700, which is insane. There's no way I'm paying that, at least for like a nice decent place. Like I know we could probably get like a studio for less than that, maybe like $1,500 or so, but still that's a lot of money for just basically a bedroom, a small bathroom, maybe a kitchen if we get lucky, you know, and everything's just outdated and gross. And we're also paying someone else's mortgage, which we figured, why not just buy our own unit? We own it, we live in it, we save money. A lot of you might think that we still pay a lot of money just to live in a fifth wheel trailer, including utilities and our rent. It comes out to around $1,200 a month. But at the end of the day, we got to remodel our unit so it looks a little bit nicer. We didn't do a whole bunch, like we never changed out the flooring, but we painted the walls, we got new curtains, you know, we made it look a little bit more homier, and if we wanted to, we could pick up and go, you know. So we figured it's better to just buy a unit, save money, and not rent an apartment, just because we also knew that this was going to be temporary and eventually we would want to purchase our own home. Maybe not here, we're still looking into places we would like to move to, but probably not California. So the second pro is the freedom that living in a fifth wheel trailer provides us. So because we live here and our rent is so low, I was able to start my own online business. My husband was able to finish school and also start his own business. So we've been pretty flexible with our income because we are not worried about our rent and just making rent each month and being stuck at a job that we don't like. So we have freedom in that sense. Also, recent events like when COVID hit, my business slowed down a lot. My husband had his hours cut at work. For a lot of people, that's really scary, but luckily for us, our rent was so low that we had enough in savings, and we also still made enough money regardless of our income decreasing. We still had enough money to pay our rent. We were pretty lucky in that aspect, and obviously that's a huge pro. So the third pro I kind of touched on a little bit is saving money. So the main reason we decided to live in a fifth wheel trailer is to save money, to put away money for ourselves, for a down payment on a house, for our businesses, and just for our future, instead of just spending that money on rent. So I think that's a big reason why people choose to live tiny or to downsize, is to save money, which is a really good reason. And I think that pro just outweighs everything else. And the next pro is that you're not stuck. You know, if something were to happen and we don't like it here anymore, we can just pick up and leave, and we can take our fifth wheel with us. Obviously, we want to stay here, but for those of you, you know, that might be in a situation where you lose a job or you get a job somewhere else, you don't have to worry about like finding a new place to live. You just have to find a spot to park your unit in, and that's it, which I think is pretty easy. And also you don't have to worry about moving all your stuff. You just have to haul your unit, and basically you're able to move your home from one place to the other. So I think that's really cool. If you want to take off and travel for a few weeks, you can also do that. We don't do that, but we know a lot of people like to do that, so that's a huge pro. And another pro, I know this, I said this was a con, but it can also be a pro, and it's cleaning. So although you have to clean more often, it's pretty quick to clean because it's such a small space, so it won't take you that long. You can do it in like 30 minutes if you do like a deep clean, and it can take you like 10 minutes if you do like just a quick organization. So yes, your unit may look like a mess pretty often, but you will be able to make it look clean again in just a matter of minutes. And the last pro is that it keeps me minimal. It forces me to live a minimalist lifestyle, which personally I love. I love being a minimalist. I love not worrying about having too many things, not being caught up in having the latest and greatest of everything, and it kind of just makes you appreciate what you have and just be content in your situation. You know, living in this fifth wheel trailer is what inspired me to become a minimalist, and ever since then I've really seen an improvement in my quality of life. and it's been great, and I'm pretty much used to living in this tiny space. So if you're dedicated and if you're organized and if you see that the pros outweigh the cons, then yes, tiny living is probably for you, and you will enjoy saving that money and having that financial freedom. So if you have any other questions that I didn't answer in this video about what it's like living in an RV or a fifth wheel trailer or a tiny house full-time, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to answer them. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!